Hi, I'm Carla D. Tillery, and welcome to the Chair Chronicles. I'm your life coach and your favorite auntie. You know, that aunt that is so not afraid to tell you the truth and help you see things just a little clearer, and you love her advice. Well, as a certified life coach with over 2 decades of experience, I'm very passionate about helping you find your happiness. So pull up a chair and let's have a talk. LA.
Hey.
Today we've got a great question because we've been getting some feedback from some of our earlier episodes.
All right.
So today we're actually responding to one of our listeners. So thank you so much for joining in and listening and sharing your ideas and your comments, and keep it coming. So one of our listeners was responding to the episode that we did about finding your soulmate.
Oh, that was a good one.
So the question has to do with how do you create healthy boundaries?
Oh, good question.
And this is in response to the fact of discovering that you're in a relationship with someone that you realize that you need to kind of create some safe space from. Because they're not your soulmate. And I think responding about healthy boundaries can really cross the board with all different types of relationships. Because I think some of the principles are actually the same.
Yeah, I think this is a great question, and it's one that we can definitely unpack, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of your key points and all of that. This is really good.
All right.
Yes.
So let's start with this. So again, it doesn't matter the situation, but let's throw out a few things that it could apply to.
Sure.
Right? I think certainly it can apply to a relationship where you're trying to explore whether they are your soulmate and whether their marriage potential and that sort of thing. And you've been dating for a while. Or something comes up and you realize, this person is not really in alignment with who I am and my core values, etc. So that's one situation where I think these things can apply with. There's also some family dynamics.
Oh, that's a huge one.
And I mean, that can be very difficult because of the fact that they're blood relatives. And sometimes, as we've said, you know, that expression, right? We can choose our friends, but we don't choose our family.
If only, right?
Right. So even in family dynamics, sometimes it is necessary.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To kind of create some safe space and create some healthy boundaries of what that relationship looks like. And I think more difficult when it's a parent.
Yes.
Right?
That's a hard dynamic.
Dealing with a parent-child relationship, it is very, very, very difficult. And how do you do that in an appropriate way?
That's respectful.
Respectful. That still honors the fact that they're your parent. When you have experienced so much, sometimes trauma, sometimes neglect. And it's like, how do you honor your parent when you've had these types of experiences?
Right. But again, it's the difficult conversations, and it's also the difficult conversation with yourself. You have to look out for yourself. And regardless of whether it's a parent or whether it's a love interest, it's about you making sure that you're okay.
That you're okay.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it makes a lot of us feel like we're being selfish.
And there's a difference between selfish and self-preservation.
Yes. And there's a difference between being selfish and self-respect. So that is another kind of challenging relationship where I think that these principles again could apply to something like that as well. So, all right.
Let's do it. Let's unpack it.
All right. So I think the first thing that I tell clients and people that are wondering how to kind of create these healthy boundaries is you've got to understand your position. Where do you stand? Right? What are your limits? So what is it that you need in this relationship? And the one thing that I always say is don't have the expectation that the other person is going to change. This is about what you can do, empower yourself, what you have the ability to control and manage.
And really what it is that you're willing to accept and what you're not willing to accept. But you have to know what that is.
You have to know what that is. So you got to know your position. So if it is a love interest, it's like if you know you're with someone that you're like, okay, I need to create some safe space and some distance. This relationship doesn't have growth potential. Then you got to be certain and very clear that that is your position, that this person cannot share that space where I need to preserve for intimacy.
Right.
And I know it sounds like this is clean cut, and it's difficult. But it's difficult. And I know I'm going to talk out both sides of my mouth today. I already know.
But let's talk the truth. Let's tell the truth
about
it.
It really can be simple. I think implementing it and acting out on it is more difficult and challenging. Yeah. But sometimes it is very black and white. Right. It's like it's either this person is supposed to be in your life for those purposes of intimacy and growth potential and sharing your life together. Right. Or not.
Not. And if not, you have to be willing to make the change. And the change starts with you.
The change starts with
you. Will I
accept
this or will I move on?
Right.
And that's where, this is good.
But it's the battle between the head
and the heart.
Yes.
Oh.
And they don't listen to each other sometimes.
At all sometimes. You're like, could you guys meet in the middle? And,
Right. They they're in constant war sometimes. Yeah. And I think sometimes we feel certain things, but we know different.
We know the truth.
Yeah. And the heart doesn't sometimes respond to the truth. So know your position. That's the first thing. You got to know where you stand. You got to know what your limits are. You have to know what you're willing to accept and not accept. Yep. And you really got to identify what that relationship needs to look like. What is the healthy, respectful role that you need to have with that person?
Right.
And then once you know that, then it's easier to kind of adapt the right behavior. Right. But you got to know first.
You got to know. Right. And I think, like you said, when we get out of the butterflies and the the gooey eyes at each other, you may have to sit down with a piece of paper if you haven't already done this self-discovery thing and say, what is it that I need? Right. What is it that I want from this relationship? And what is it looking like to me?
Right.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself that you're not getting what you need from it, or you're always frustrated, or you always aggravated, you're always in conflict and arguing, those are some red flags that you need to pay attention to say, is this something that can be worked out, or is this really a stumbling block for this relationship to grow?
Right. Yeah. And is it something you can deal with? And therein, if it makes you uncomfortable and you feel like that's the boundaries. That's where we start getting into those boundaries.
Right.
Yeah.
So the second thing is you need to be in tune with your feelings. And sometimes that's difficult to be really aware and fully understand how you're feeling and then accepting what it means.
That's a hard one.
Right?
That's a hard one.
Because I think trying to create healthy boundaries may give you a sense of feeling guilty. Yeah. It may make you feel shameful. It may make you feel like you're being too selfish.
Right.
And those emotions, you got to recognize it, and put it in its proper place.
That's it.
Is it a result of you trying to create safe space and self-respect, self-preservation?
Right.
Or, are you doing this because you're being catty, or you're just being, having your moment, right? So where are those emotions and feelings? What is it stemming from? And you got to be clear on that so that you can know what to do with it. Right. But sometimes when you're challenged with creating healthy boundaries, listen, it's not easy, and you're going to have to be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Particularly when it doesn't matter. I don't want to put one above the other, but whether it's family dynamics or a love interest, because those are kind of the examples we've been bringing out.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You got to be willing to expect that it's going to be uncomfortable at times.
Yes. But I think by being uncomfortable, that's where you make your shift. If you allow yourself to understand and be okay with being uncomfortable about it, it's shifting something in you. It's saying, this is not right.
Right.
This is not right. What do I need to be doing? Should I be doing something different? Should this be looking different? So I think we have to, like you said, get in tune with how we feel, and sometimes we do too much of the math. Well, if I feel like this, then it means X, Y, Z. Yeah. Yeah. So this is...
And know what it's a result of. Yeah. Where are those feelings coming from? Yeah. Where is it coming from? So yeah, you have to be in tune with your feelings. So knowing your position, but also being in tune with your feelings. I think that's going to be very important.
Good. Yeah. Take this stuff down. This is good.
Yeah.
This is good. Write this down.
I think we also have to give ourselves permission.
Yeah.
Right? Permission to want to be in a safe place. We have to give ourselves permission to want to be in healthy relationships and not feel like we have to because of our loyalty code or because of some other thing. Sometimes we hang on to things that are unhealthy I think we interpret that as for good reasons, but then we're dragging our life to places that are dark, that are heavy, that brings a lot of anxiety, brings a lot of stress, brings a lot of depression. Yeah. And then because we're not giving ourselves permission to actually be in a space where it's healthy.
Right.
We get so used to unhealthy patterns, because we've seen it in our in our lineage. Our parents dealt with this way, and they tolerated it. Right. So I have to tolerate it. No,
we don't.
No,
we have a choice.
We have a choice.
And sometimes I think we get in that position where we've been so invested that we feel like it's owed to us. Right. Not realizing that you are working against yourself. You're not being fulfilled. Right. You're just holding on because you feel like you're owed something. Yes. You're owed being healthy and happy.
Yes. And so give yourself permission to be happy.
Yes.
Give yourself permission to be in healthy relationships.
That's it. That's
absolutely
key. It's key.
All right.
This is good.
Yes. So another thing is to be direct with your communication.
Yes.
And that can be tough because sometimes we struggle with the words.
Yes.
Right? Because words have different meanings to different people.
Right.
And you can think you're saying it with the best intention. and they take it all out. They take it wrong. They take it out of context.
Right.
And you're like, oh my God, that's not how I meant it.
Right.
But you got to be direct and you got to be clear.
Yes.
With the expectation of the relationship and your communication.
Right. And I think this is where it really trips us up.
Yeah.
The communication part, it trips us up because some people are very good at, expressing how they feel. Some people express how they feel and the person walks away feeling like, okay, they've been dumped on or they feel, so it really, communication is key and you have to talk. You have to talk about it. You can't leave it in here. Right. Because the other person won't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to be ready for the response. Right? Because sometimes I think the response throws us off. Yeah. And then sometimes we can give in because of the response. Because then we're feeling, the guilt. Right?
Right.
And then sometimes it could aggravate the situation.
Right.
That's the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They can get more aggravated. And then you say things that you don't mean, and then they come out the wrong way, and then your intentions can be, ill spoken of.
Right. So you do need to be clear in what you're trying to communicate. Make sure that, again, we can't control how the other person receives it.
Right.
We just have to be sure that when we deliver it,
that
we mean what we say, we say what we mean.
Say what we mean. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So one of I think the best strategies that I have worked with many clients is to get them to think about how do I develop this relationship and change it from something that is unhealthy to something that's healthy. A lot of times it has a lot to do with our interaction with them.
Okay.
How we're interacting, the frequency of the interaction, and what's involved in that interaction.
Okay.
Right? Because if it's a love interest, it could be a lot of different things that you were doing together that was trying to build like that emotional, mental connection. Right? So if you find yourself that you've got to cut that off, it might be spending a lot less time with them, a lot less sort of communication with them, whether it's by phone or, by text, etc. So you've got to find a way to start to limit the interaction if you really need to create space.
Right. Wow. And it's heavy, and it puts you in an uncomfortable position because you don't want to hurt the other person's feeling, or you yourself know that it's now no longer working for you and you need to withdraw.
That's right. And with family,
oh boy.
How do you do family functions? And how do you explain to others, and they're looking for you, and you've created some space, but you're getting the phone calls, well, where are you, and how come you're not here, and and so that can be very heavy.
It can be. And again, understanding that as you begin to change, it's going to make other people uncomfortable.
That's right.
And especially in our family dynamics, especially if it's a parent and a child, or siblings.
Exactly.
When you really get in tune with what you need and your boundaries are being crossed, you're going to change the way in which you interact, and it's going to make others uncomfortable because they're so used to you being boxed into this certain way.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what are you going to hear? You're going to hear things like, oh, so-and-so is trying to be funny. They're too good to be with us.
Yes,
that's going to come up. That is a response that you need to be prepared for. Whether it's said or not, you need to prepare yourself to know that these are some of the typical reactions when people start to kind of create more space.
Yes, and do not allow them to make you feel guilty about how you feel.
Yes.
You have a right.
Yes. And people can say certain things, but what do you do with it? Do you house it? Do you internalize it?
Right.
Because again, we can't control the other person.
Right.
So they may do everything they can to guilt trip you. But what do you do with that information? Sometimes it's harder to let things go by your ear.
Right.
And
right.
Sometimes,
like, say one more thing, and I'm gonna let you have it. Right.
We catch it and we throw it right back at you.
Right. Exactly. Don't start nothing.
I know. But most times you've got to figure out how to catch it and then do the right thing with it. And a lot of times it's disposing of it.
Right.
It's not taking it in. It's not consuming it.
Not have a reaction to it at all.
Right. And a lot of times we care so much about what people think about us.
That we do ourselves a disservice.
We do ourselves a disservice for self-preservation and self-respect.
Back to those two words.
Yeah. And so what becomes important to you? Right. Is it what they're saying or what it is that you need? Right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise we'll stay entangled in unhealthy relationships.
Yeah.
And at a detriment to ourselves. Own life.
Oh,
yes.
So we're supposed to live a healthy life.
And I know this sounds, this is challenging, and I get it. And I've been in situations where I needed to create that space. So I understand the sort of tug of war. I understand the turmoil. I understand not knowing what to do with the reactions, right? Or consuming the reaction. And then it's like, oh my God, now I can't do this because they're thinking this about me. And how are they going to, how am I going to be received when I come back? And it's just, you just get consumed with all of these different thoughts. And some of them are just imagination. Right. Some of them we haven't even lived out. We just assuming that so-and-so's going to treat me like this and that's going to happen. We'll imagine all of these things.
Right. And like you said, I've been in that place too. And you do, it wears on your very spirit and your soul. It just wears on you. And it comes across in the way in which we view ourselves.
That's right.
Our health.
That's right.
Our mental well-being.
Right, because you know that something is unhealthy for you by the way you have responded to it, right? Yes. You're aggravated, you're frustrated all the time, you're never in a good mood. You might even experience symptoms of depression, and you might experience symptoms of some other types of disorders can come as a result of this, right?
Right.
So you know all of this, but yet when you get a response, right, then you can start to see yourself as what they say.
Right.
And they're not seeing what you're dealing with on the other side.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
This is good.
Come on, listen now.
Yeah.
Listen
do
to
Auntie. Better. When you know better, do better.
Listen, we got to do better.
We got to do better.
I know that wasn't correct, but y'all understand.
You understand it.
Right. Okay, so you've got to limit your interaction a lot of times and try to find a way to control the environment and your interaction with them and empower yourself to do it.
Yes.
To do it in a very responsive way.
Right.
So the other thing is practicing self-awareness. So once you get started with trying to create a new behavior and a new pattern with the individual, one of the things is to be aware, right, of what are the changes? Are they yielding the results I'm looking for?
Right.
Are they making things worse, making things better? Like what's happening now that you're starting to kind of create some of these healthier situations?
Right. Are they just, I'm just going to placate you a little bit. Let me just satisfy you a little bit. I'm going to change for you. And, we know change is consistency.
Yes. Yes.
So are they just doing that because they're scared of losing you?
And, sometimes people will make changes because they don't want to let go of the relationship. Right? So they'll make good efforts and attempts to change the behavior to meet the need of their partner or the need of the other person in the relationship. And guess what? After a few months,
right back to the same old thing.
They done gone back.
What happened? Yes. Where's all that work you did?
They have returned back to their old ways.
Right.
And so the thing is, the self-awareness, you have to monitor this over a period of time. Right? To make sure that you're developing new behavior and you're recognizing that the behavior aligns up with your position. We got to go back to what your position is. Like all of these things are connected, right?
Yes, right.
And so the first thing was you got to understand what's your stance, what's okay, what's not okay.
Right.
And so this self-awareness period, you've got to watch your behavior, watch the responses, and make sure they're yielding the results that you're looking for based on your position.
Right. It's empowering.
It's very empowering.
Yeah.
And it's also it can be very delicate and very sensitive.
Right.
And I recognize that, but the empowerment is key.
Yeah.
We must empower ourselves to really live in healthy relationships. And let me tell you why else is important. Because people are watching you. And sometimes whether you are a parent or not, or big sister, little brother, whatever it is, there are most likely people in your circle that you influence and they're watching you. And if they watch you live in unhealthy relationships, they repeat the pattern.
Oh, we've got to break that generational curse. That is a generational curse and we have to pluck it from the root. We have to do that.
We have to break it. Yeah. So it's important that we practice healthy relationships because whoever is in our circle that we influence, they're watching us, they're watching that behavior pattern, and they will replicate and duplicate that in their life because they're looking at you as the model.
Right. And we want them to see, like you said, us in healthy relationships and the right way to be in relationships.
Yes.
We don't want to bring toxic behaviors and attitudes. And we don't want that mirrored. We don't want that mirrored.
That's right.
So we have to do the work.
I do believe that there's a way to still maintain a relationship in some sort.
Right.
And in certain situations.
Right.
And keep it healthy without just dropping it all together.
Right.
Sometimes you can find the right balance, right? So that you're not just totally getting rid of that person as part of your life, but you're just creating a healthy boundary so that you can do it in a way that keeps you healthy and sane.
Right. And again, it depends upon the relationship. Now, there are, obviously love interests and things like that. When we see that person is not going to be in our lives long term, we don't see them as our soulmate, then those relationships, my personal opinion is you don't have to end as enemies, but you go your way and I go mine. But like you said, there's still a way to release that person.
Release the person,
without it being contentious.
And it requires maturity.
Yeah.
Right? It requires a level of, I believe, recognizing the humanity in the individual.
Right.
Because I think if we recognize that, we may have created an environment where they're going to be hurt.
Right.
Then there's, you want to be careful how you handle that.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
How would you want somebody to handle you if you were the person that was being toxic to someone, right? Because and you might not even think it. You're right. You might not even think you're doing that.
Right.
But I think we should treat people the way we want to be treated.
Right.
And I think even when we're trying to make a difficult decision, when we're trying to create a healthy boundary, we have to understand that it may be uncomfortable, but we can still do it with honor and respect of the other individual.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is wow.
So I say start small sometimes if that's necessary. And what I mean by that is, you know, when you're creating sort of the respectful boundary, you know, there may be certain phases to it over time that is gradual. And in other cases, it may need to be, you know, expedited. So it just depends. Again, it's hard to kind of apply, you know, one formula to every situation. That's very difficult to do because our lives are just way too complex.
Yes, they are.
But the point is that when you can start small, that is a better way of creating this gradual progression towards creating a healthy boundary.
And I think it keeps you, like you said, looking at the humanity of it. You know, it helps you to tailor your conversation. What is the conversation that you need to have? How am I going to communicate this? Is it face to face? It's over the phone. You know, so it like you said, by doing these small steps, it creates a better way for you to handle situations going forward. So not just particular boundaries, but any relationship that you have, any situation you find yourself in. So Rome wasn't built in a day.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Yeah.
And the last thing is seek support. I mean, sometimes counseling may be necessary. Sometimes you've got certain people in your circle that can give you some really good advice and help coach you through the process. But if you need help, get help.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, don't stay in unhealthy relationships when it's not necessary.
You don't have to.
You don't have to.
You have choice.
You have choices out there. And empower yourself to be in the healthiest relationships possible.
Yes, and then when you're healthy, those around you will be healthy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. This is good.
Oh, wow. I know this was heavy, but it was good.
It was good. Yeah. It was good. We need to be reminded.
Right.
That, you know, we can have good relationships.
We can have good relationships.
Yeah.
So I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, thank you to all of our listeners who are providing this great feedback and joining us on this journey. Yes. So we hope that you will continue to stay tuned with us. We want you to like, share, and comment, and continue to join us on future episodes. So again, thank you so much. And joining us on the Share Chronicles.